Right, shall we talk about Phoebe's bob?
What?
Phoebe Waller-Bridge goes out with Martin McDonagh.
Oh god, she does, doesn't she?
Yes. Yeah.
Oh.
Welcome. Okay, you ready?
Yeah, I'm ready.
Oh, you're so sad now.
I can lead you astray, straight to hell if you like. Give me a big black box and I can open your eyes. Are we keeping it real? Are we keeping it tight? Are we all just victims of our infinite life?
Ben is really sad. Welcome back to EnterTheRealWorld.com. This is the Will Be Movies, a podcast, 25 of my favourite movies from a given decade. This is Volume 1, 2000-2009. Ben is sad because I just told him who the director of this movie is going out with. But Ben, will you be able to make it through the next probably hour of discourse?
Yeah, I should be alright. I knew that they were doing this. It's just, like, my opinion of this man has gone down ever since he started actually being nominated for many, many Oscars.
Well, he didn't get nominated for this one. This one is called In Bruges.
He did. He got a nomination for original screenplay.
Original screenplay. All right. A nomination, though. Didn't Three Billboards win things?
Three Billboards won some acting stuff.
Oh, okay.
It shouldn't have won acting stuff.
Well, in any event, this is episode 21. This is In Bruges, chosen by both of us. I feel less good about choosing it than I did several weeks ago, but I do still think it is extremely good. Written and directed by Martin McDonagh, who is the paramour of one Phoebe Waller-Bridge, to our chagrin. It's his only feature film of the decade. He is a playwright traditionally by trade, but then he went on to do Seven Psychopaths and Three Billboards Outside Ebbing, Missouri in the next decade. I have seen neither of those. I want to see Seven Psychopaths. You and many other people whose opinions I vaguely trust warned me of Three Billboards, so I haven't seen it. But given some of the content of this movie, knowing he did that and knowing what you have said about it, I'm like, okay, that makes sense.
Yeah, like I haven't seen In Bruges since I saw Three Billboards, and I was like watching this going like, oh no, the seeds are all here for like.
Yeah, you can trace it backwards.
like literally the two biggest issues in Three Billboards are the race issues and Peter Dinklage's character.
And hey, what do you know? We will get into it, and I have some interesting, possibly rhetorical questions for you, but yeah. Released February 8th, 2008 in the US. Somehow, like this, did this come out in the US first? April 18th, 2008 in the US.
I would assume because Universal or Focus or whatever. Like I imagine some part of it was.
Come on, look at it. There's a Canadian and some Americans, and the Americans are clearly actually Irish, and the part of a joke.
I mean, it premiered in January at Sundance, and then obviously a month later it's out in the US. So obviously I feel like they had some degree of kind of distribution in mind, because there's no way that you take a movie from Sundance and put it out in February unless you have all that stuff kind of like lined up.
Fair.
And also Colin Farrell is still Colin Farrell, even though like he's had like those series of bombs, he still is a bankable star in America.
Yeah.
In whatever way he can. I mean, I say bankable.
He's good looking and he can act.
Yes, he can definitely act. And he is definitely looking.
He definitely is. That episode of Scrubs always comes to mind where he just charms everyone he meets throughout it. We have finally left 2007 behind us after, what, 6 entries?
Yeah, six movies in 2007.
Okay. So
we're done with 2007. We're into 2008.
Yes, and I don't know offhand how many 2008 movies we're doing, but you can do your full suite of features for our breakdown of the year 2008, so go crazy. I know this has been
we're only
weeks.
doing 2 movies for 2008. So here we go. So best movies of 2008. So we've got stuff like WALL-E, which we will cover someday. It was also definitely on this list at one point, but
one of 3 Pixar movies.
Yep, I do love WALL-E. It's my favourite Pixar movie. Spoilers. The Hurt Locker came out at Venice Film Festival in September 2008, so it technically counts as a 2008 movie. Left, Right One In, which is a fantastic Swedish horror movie. A little movie called The Dark Knight.
Never heard of it.
It's Synoptic New York, which is Charlie Kaufman, which we decided not to cover for this because we've done 2 Charlie Kaufman movies already. Not getting too much.
Kind of, yeah.
Hunger by Steve McQueen. It's one of his early movies. Obviously, we will be covering Steve McQueen in the next decade. His most interesting stuff is still to come. We've got Man on Wire, Wendy and Lucy, Slumdog Millionaire, The Wrestler, Gran Torino, Milk, In Bruges is this movie, like lots and lots of really good movies came out in 2008, but not as many in 2007.
No, but 2007 was a monster.
So nominated for Best Picture this year, we have Slumdog Millionaire, which is a good movie. I enjoyed it.
Yep.
Curious Case of Benjamin Button, which I also enjoy. I feel a lot of people are kind of like, it's Forrest Gump, but it's David Fincher doing Forrest Gump, which makes it a bit more interesting. It's a weird movie. I watched it on like a laptop when it first came out because I watched it on a laptop and then I saw it in the cinema and I saw it with a friend who had been like working like stupid hours and they were just like, I fell asleep about halfway through. I found that really boring. And I'm just like, I really like it. But I've not seen it in like a decade, so my opinion could change. Not that we're covering it for this podcast.
No.
Frost Nixon, one of those acting showcase movies.
That you love so much.
Which I love so much. Milk, another one of those acting showcase movies, which I love so much.
Mm-hmm.
And then The Reader.
Oh, yeah.
Which the movie that finally won Kate Winslet her Oscar.
Yeah, you were just reeling off films that I'd forgotten existed.
These are the 5 pictures for Best Picture. My favourite movie of the year was not nominated for Best Picture, much to my chagrin. It didn't win any awards either, so...
Oh, well.
Yeah, we will get into my distaste next week.
Yes, we will. How about That Money, then?
That Money, highest grossing movies of the year. Number 1, this movie, again, I didn't realise I made this much money, The Dark Knight.
I would think I would have heard of it.
I know.
But
$533 million at the domestic box office. That's an awful lot of money that movie made.
It sure is.
But number 2, even more importantly, the best of this franchise, Indiana Jones and the Kingdom of the Crystal Skull.
My God, really? It tricked that many people?
$786 million. And I will say this, it's better than Temple of Doom. That is my hot take on that movie.
Okay.
Number 3, Kung Fu Hustle. Number 4, Hancock. Number 5, kind of like the end of Will Smith being able to be like the highest grossing movie star in the world. Mamma Mia, Madagascar 2, Quantum of Solace, Iron Man.
Don't know.
Wall-E and The Chronicles of Narnia, Prince Caspian. Again, like, what happened to that franchise? That's money. In Bruges does not show up on any of these lists.
No, why would it?
Apart from getting 1 Best Original Screenplay nomination. It opened in the UK March 7th. It opened to number 11 at the UK box office, earning £692,000 or equivalent.
Colin Farrell got Best Lead in a Comedy, right, at the Golden Globes, I think.
Yeah, that's Golden Globes. No one cares about the Golden Globes.
Yeah, and also it's the musical and comedy category, so...
It opened behind such movies as Vantage Point, The Other Berlin Girl, and The Game Plan.
Good lord.
3 movies I think we ever thought we'd bring up on this podcast. But then somehow, interestingly, how many weeks into its run? In its 7th week into its run, it opened in an additional 220 cinemas and earned almost $1.3 million equivalent in the UK.
Oh...
Yeah, it's still open behind 21 and Fool's Gold, though.
Not quite as interesting as Learning Sunshine was playing on a screen somewhere in the world at the time of the recording, but yeah.
This is true. Oh, Son of Rambo was out at the same time as In Bruges.
Oh.
That was a fun, rambunctious little movie.
Anyway, this is 107 minutes long. It's breezy. We are done with our bloated Oscar bait now, for now. In those 107 minutes, they fit the word fuck 126 times. That is 1.18 fucks per minute.
How many times does Ralph Fiennes say that? Or Rafe Fiennes, sorry.
Come on. I would imagine Rafe has a good chunk of them, yes. And you have to remember, there are large chunks of this movie that are just piano score, so that's quite...
Carter Burwell's score for this movie is really good.
It really is.
Like, you get the Coen brothers composer, and you're going to get something good.
Yes.
It is a good score. Rafe Fiennes doing this role is particularly weird.
Oh, I've got some things to say about that, don't you worry. So, on a budget of $15 million, surprised they got that much. Box office, it took 35. I'm surprised it was profitable, but hey. Because, I mean, it's small.
It's small, it's very adult, it's very regional, and also it stars kind of like 2 actors who are at that point kind of like that guy from Harry Potter. And
there are 5 people from Harry Potter in this movie.
Or one of them hadn't done Harry Potter at this point.
Yeah, right. Yeah.
And then Colin Farrell, who at this point is coming off of such massive hits as Alexander, The New World, and Miami Vice.
Why didn't Colin Farrell and Jamie Foxx in Miami Vice work? Like, that should work.
It does. Miami Vice is a great movie.
What?
Miami Vice is so good.
That's your hottest take, and you just said that Crystal Skull's better than Temple of Doom.
Miami Vice is a Michael Mann fever dream that is really good, and like Jamie Foxx flat out ruined the end of that movie because he's just like, I don't want to shoot this movie anymore because I don't like being in this movie, so he just leaves, which is why he disappears for like a massive stretch of that film.
Oh, okay.
Gong Li doesn't know English and is doing all of her dialogue phonetically.
Okay. Well, I'm more interested in Miami Vice now than I am in Bruges, so well done. I don't have a huge amount of information about the backstory of this movie. The script was on the Hollywood blacklist. Harold Pinter's play, The Dumbwaiter, was a huge influence, which is, of course, about two hitmen who await their instructions on who they're going to kill, and then it turns out it's one has to kill the other, and you can see how that would have affected this, and knowing that McDonough is a playwright, and like you can see he's got a lot of sort of old-timey influences.
I will say, the thing that I like about this is, even though it is very play-y in terms of like the way the dialogue plays out and stuff like that, there are a lot of stage adaptations to screen. They feel a lot more stagey than this does, and this movie is a hell of a lot more visually interesting.
Yeah, it's
and
cinematic.
Yeah, sure, like it's not like something like Fences, which
we just moved it from a theatre to a house.
Yeah, exactly. Like it feels very much kind of like it's still very stagey in how it's set up, and like you can see that DNA. And whilst you can see the DNA here, it's kind of more like something like The Lighthouse, where like a friend of mine, when we saw The Lighthouse together, she turned around and said like that felt like a Pinter play, but it's so much more visually interesting, and you kind of wonder how they would stage it with all the effects and kind of stuff like that they do in that movie. Whereas something like Fences, where it's just like, oh, I know exactly how they stage that because it's just people talking. Like there isn't more to the movie than that. It's an acting showcase which would play just as well on a stage as it does on the screen.
Ray and Ken were originally set to be English, but then they went and cast Colin Farrell and Brendan Gleeson, so let's not make them do bad English accents. But that explains why, like, they work for Harry, they live in London, etc. They just didn't bother to change that. Yeah, that's lit. I've got nothing. I have nothing about, like, who they wanted to hire instead of who, where the ideas came, none of it. So let's just get into it. Hitmen Ken and Ray check into a hotel in Bruges, Belgium. For those of you who didn't know where Bruges was before you saw this movie, it is in Belgium. On the orders of their boss, following Ray shooting a, for now, unidentified person. They open with these really, and you see them at the end as well, these really beautiful shots of the kind of, I don't want to paraphrase them, but, you know, the Gothic and all that, you know, like the church, you know, the angel statues and all of that, and the piano score is great. And you've got,
I want someone to do the maths on how many people have gone to Bruges since this movie came out. How much of the tourism of Bruges has been like, there must be like a tour or something of all the locations that they filmed this movie on. I'm sure it's not like the main draw, but it's one of those things where like it's such a nondescript town that it probably is kind of like,
a fairy tale town. It's beautiful. How could this not be anyone's cup of fucking tea?
Oh,
yeah, and
good.
Bruges is a fucking shithole. Colin Farrell's like low energy narration as he's talking about how he dumped the gun in the Thames and washed it.
It's almost Justin Through like in its kind of monotoneness.
I could see Justin Theroux doing like a version of this for American audiences it's just a small town somewhere in America.
Who would we go? So Justin Theroux as Ray.
Yeah.
Who's the Brendan Gleeson equivalent?
He's still alive. Phillips Seymour Hoffman.
Oh, that'd be really good.
You know it would.
Oh,
and then who's Harry?
Who's Harry? Oh god, it has to be someone like. I mean, I kind of would want to do like Gandolfini if we're doing like.
Yeah, okay. Anyway, our fan casting aside, yeah, I like that. Him talking about like washing his hands in a Burger King bathroom. It kind of really establishes the tone of.
I do enjoy when a movie does that kind of thing where like it uses a piece of real life iconography that isn't branding or anything like that. It's just like something that you would do. Like, where's the closest place in London to a church where you could probably find a bathroom that was open?
I think it's more of a damning like thing than like advertising. It's like, yeah, in a fucking Burger King, you know. Like, yeah, the movie throughout it does. We've talked about it before. I've talked about it with Mike. I've done it on a podcast where like it's deliberately a bit shittily realistic. You know, like no one is that smooth at fighting or anything, and until you find out the truth about both Ray in general and why they're here, his description just makes it sound like, oh, we just did a job and now we're waiting for it to blow over, and then of course you will find out the horrible truth. But before then, you just get Ray just tearing into Bruges. He has roughly my temperament when I am forced to sightsee in Europe. Just the old buildings and that.
I want to do like his full line of like, if I grew up in Dublin, if I grew up on a farm and was maybe no, I'm not saying that word.
No, go on. They say it repeatedly.
If I grew up on a farm and was the R word, maybe I'd be impressed, but I wasn't, so I'm not. There's a wonderful flow to the dialogue.
Yes.
It's just every single character speaks in a lot of slurs.
Yes, I'm going to say some words I don't say in everyday life. They say repeatedly retarded, spastic, puff, bumboy, gay, like as a derogative, all sorts of shit. It's bad, and I kind of forgot how bad it is, I guess. I guess that's a sign of like growing up, and like at times I've seen this, I just sort of, you listen to a lot of like Eminem and you watch all these like movies that are full of swears and you're like, whatever, and like, yeah, it sort of all hits different now. I'm an adult, but yeah, it's a problem, and it made me feel a little bit uncomfortable watching it this time, and I was at times like, how can we tear down certain films and TV shows for being problematic and handwave this just because the rest of it is good? And I guess it comes...
Well, I think the entire thing is, when we're having these discussions is, and it's why a lot of people disagree with cancel culture, is the conversation should be acknowledging that the movies do these things and these are bad. And like, that is a very important thing to bring up and say, like, this is a thing that if this movie came out now, probably would not let the movie kind of get to the point of acclaim that it is. But I think the rest of the movie just about kind of makes up for it in terms of how good it is. And I'm sure there are people out there that would disagree and say, like, this is reprehensible trash that kind of like feeds into stereotypes about gay people of small stature, about racism and all these kind of things. But I do think that the movie manages to maintain a quality.
The emotion is there, the drama is there,
the emotion, yeah, and like there are things that I think are reprehensible and like really should be not in this movie. But I think the way that they talk about and the way that Ray keeps using like certain slurs, they are true to how a character in this situation would speak.
Yeah.
Or true to how this character would speak, in that he isn't a good person.
No.
And
I mean, they're hitmen, for fuck's sake.
Yeah, and it's like, and I'm like, the thing is, I'm sure I'm being entirely contradictory to like my very vocal opinion about Three Billboards.
Well, that's what came to mind when like realizing he did both of those movies and realizing this is full of stuff. And I haven't seen Three Billboards, so I can't speak to it. But I have heard accusations of, well, obviously, like the main character commits a racist act, but then like he gets like a redemptive arc, and then like
he's not the main character. He is a supporting character in the movie, but he is a police officer who has previously like beaten up black people in racially charged ways. And I've had arguments with people saying that he isn't redeemed by the movie, but I do think the movie kind of puts him on a redemptive arc.
Yeah, and then like the like total number of lines for black characters in the movie is like very minimal. And
yeah, it's very noticeable that you hired an Irish man from Ireland to write a movie about race issues in the US.
Yes.
Which you think is the core of the problem at the heart of Three Billboards. And that's not to say you can't write things outside of your like realm of view, because obviously I don't think Martin McDonagh is a hitman.
No.
so therefore he is able to write a movie about two hitmen, but they are based around people who have a core set of cultural values that are applicable to him, which is entirely different to the core tenet of Three Billboards, which is about people in southern states of America in which racial violence and racism are still incredibly prevalent. And like, there is stuff in that movie that I think is good. I do think Frances McDormand is really good in that movie, and I think the stuff of her grappling with the fact that her daughter was raped and murdered is the good part of that movie. It's just he's trying to do something that touches on political issues that he is completely unable to grapple with. And even in this movie, he's completely unable to grapple with the reality of some of the stuff that he's writing, even though I think this movie is more successful in that they are funnier. There is a kind of like, oh look, let's laugh at the racist element to this movie, which isn't exactly present in Three Billboards.
Yeah, back to the... Like, you can't get around it. Like, it comes up frequently, but just, Ray fucking hating Bruges while Ken is like just smiling as they go along on the little canal boat. It's great. I strongly relate to Ray here, not in my use of language, but I quite frankly, I've been to many European cities that I think are the fucking same, and I have never been interested in old buildings and that, as he would say. So, there is a nice beat with Ken trying to get rid of his coins to go up the tower, that he will use those coins later, and I like the beat that the guy would rather take a €50 note than let him go in 10 cents short, you know?
See, I understand why they don't, because the payoff to that gag is he gets out the €50 note, but also I've been that person in retail, and I would definitely have rolled my eyes if someone had brought out like...
I know, I thought that was the whole point. It's like, alright, you want to be a prick, here's a €50 note. I assume he has a smaller one, he's just being a prick. Don't bring up 50s, anyone.
You have to check them, it's a real ball ache.
Also, like, Ken pretending to shoot Ray while he's at the top of the tower, and, like, before you know what's up, that's just a fun little beat, and then when you realise and watch it again, it's like, oh, I think well, actually, he doesn't know he's there to do that, but maybe on some level he suspected. I don't know.
I mean, like, they bring it up in kind of, like, one of the next scenes, which is, like, they go sit in a bar, and he's just like, oh, like, we might be on a job. You don't know that. Like, why would he send us to Bruges?
Yeah.
Like, it's all very kind of, like, very elaborate to...
Yeah.
We could hide out in Croydon. Coventry.
Oh, Coventry. No one wants to go to Coventry. Or Croydon. Ray insults some Americans. It's good.
It starts off very well-meaning, and then in that way that kind of, like, Ray is, he's far too blunt and far too uncouth. Because he immediately goes, like, why can't we go up there? It's like, oh, because you're a bunch of fucking elephants.
Look at you, you're a fucking elephant. Yeah, and I like that Ken has the exact same, guys, I wouldn't go up there, it's really narrow. And because Ray has pissed them off, they, like, react to Ken far stronger than they do Ray. Like.
Which has the fantastic payoff later on in the movie.
Yes.
Which, again, is another problematic thing of this movie, is the kind of vague fat phobia that you've got going on. But
I think it's coming from a place of most other countries don't like America, they think they're all fat and they're bad tourists and stuff. So I think it's coming from there, but yes, if you couple it with all the other phobias there are in here, it certainly doesn't create a nice dotted line. So Ray convinces Ken to go out for the night rather than wait in for the phone call from Harry as they've been instructed, and they stumble across a film set, and Ray takes a liking to a girl called Chloe. You get the bit here where, I mean, we've talked about how there's a lot of problems with the homophobic slurs, but when he says one gay beer for my gay friend and one normal beer for me because I'm normal, it's like, you have perfectly captured this kind of prick that everyone has met. Gay beer is definitely a thing I've heard a lot of people say. Saying for my gay friend is where it goes too far, I think. You know, the beer in a chalice type thing. Yeah, that's definitely...
the thing is, I know so little about beer that I've got no idea which one's, like,
well,
what
he
beer
wants, like, a
is.
straight pint in a pint glass, and Ken is drinking, like,
so
a European...
He's doing the not even a pint, he's doing, like, the half-litre kind of thing.
Yeah. And, like, Ken's got, like, a blend in like a little chalice, and yeah, it's a thing. He is very excited by the presence of... I'm not going to use the word he word. Are we going with
the movie goes with dwarf, which is an actual medical condition.
Yes.
Which I'm fairly sure is incorrect to describe.
And they do claim that the character prefers dwarf, because Ray says midget. He says they're filming midgets. And his fixation on little people, and apparently Martin McDonagh's, is odd. In it's pervasive. It's not just a one-time shock thing.
Okay. So Jordan Prentice, the actor, does have dwarfism.
Yes.
He does have dwarfism, but he is a self-described person of short stature, is how he describes himself.
I read that, yes. But like Ray coming out with, like, saying a lot of little people kill themselves, and, like, going in depth about why that might be while trying to chat up Chloe, which is fucking shit chat, by the way, but she is a weirdo and she's into it, so...
This is only more egregious now in hindsight with Three Billboards, just because of the presence of Peter Dinklage in that movie. And it's like, I remembered that like, obviously this was a subplot in Bruges. In
Bruges.
in Bruges. But it's such a weird hang-up.
If it comes up in multiple movies, I'm now, like, looking at the writer with a funny look, you know, like... I like Ken forgetting which alias belongs to him when Marie, the hotel co-owner, not receptionist.
We need to do the note.
Yeah, Ray finds... I love that they don't have voicemail, and so it's like a hand, you know, she's typed it out, and they have Ray Fiennes narrate this, like, sweary fucking phone message.
Number 1, why aren't you in when I fucking told you to be in? Number 2, why doesn't this hotel have phones with fucking voicemail and not I have to leave messages with the fucking receptionist? Number 3, you better fucking be in tomorrow night when I call, otherwise there'll be fucking hell to pay. I'm fucking telling you. Harry.
And then she writes the little note at the bottom, I'm not the receptionist, I am the co-owner. I love that she wrote it all down and didn't take out the fucks.
I love that she wrote it down and then she also signs it Marie.
Yeah. Yeah, I like them having Ray Fiennes narrate this. And, like, he is this presence that we don't see for 2/3 of the movie. And,
yeah, like, he literally only shows up at, like, the very end.
Yeah. We will talk about Ray Fiennes. So Ken insists, because of this, that they stay in the next night so they don't miss another call. Ray points out, well, only one of us needs to be there, and I want to go on a date with Chloe. So Ken is like, all right, but I'm picking what we do all day. So he picks their daily activities, and they spend the day in Bruges. And when he's talking about the balance between fun and culture, I believe he says something to the effect of, like, a big, fat, retarded black girl on a seesaw opposite a dwarf. And I was just
he does indeed say that. That is...
Why
Why
did she have to be black in this metaphor?
Like, the line itself is probably the most problematic line in the entire...
Yeah, he just picked them all and just threw them in one line, didn't he?
It's that moment where you kind of go, like, breathing through your teeth and go, like...
Ooh. Yeah, when you've recommended it to someone and you watch it with them and then this line comes up, you're like, oh... You can really tell this dude wrote 3 billboards, can't you?
But then it's also that thing where it's like, it does kind of nail that. Like, it does pick up on, like, every single one of his hang-ups. Both Ray and Martin McDonagh, you could probably, like, do a case study on, like, Martin McDonagh's entire career based on this one line in this movie.
Yeah, probably. Look, I feel on some level this would have worked if it were, like, an Irish independent movie and, like, or if he'd done more of an effort to address that clearly there are some problems with things that Irish people aren't familiar with, shall we say, or something like that. But when you're presenting it to the world without judgment almost, it's like, strange. I will try to stop being hung up every time something comes up.
I think like there is only one significant one left, really.
Yeah, kind of. So we finally get our flashback because Ray is sitting in the square and he sees children playing, and we finally get our flashback of why they're here. And he is confessing to a priest played by Mance Rayder 2 episodes in a row, and I still won't call him by his real name. He's confessing to murder, and he's like, "Of who? You," and then he kills him badly. And
yeah, two shots through the wall and then 3 shots as he stumbles away.
Yeah, and it's like, you know, we later learn this was his first job and his only job, we will find out. And it sort of makes sense why he wasn't the smoothest at this. But yeah, in the process of putting a further 3 bullets in him, one of them goes through him and kills a small boy who was praying.
At a very odd angle.
A very odd angle, yes. Yeah, this is when the very dark penny drops, I would say, and this movie becomes something more than just a swear fest and a problematic fest. And this through line of Ray's guilt, I think, saves this and takes it into very good movie territory, because Colin Farrell fucking crushes the crushing weight of the guilt of this action, I think, throughout.
Yeah, like, Colin Farrell is such a good actor.
Yeah.
And
she got to prove it in better things.
And yeah, last thing is, he's such a good actor, and like he started off really good in stuff like Minority Report,
yeah,
and then they kind of immediately saddle him with Bullseye and Daredevil and SWAT and Alexander, and then he kind of retreats away and starts doing some more like independent stuff. And like I think he's fantastic in New World. I think he's fantastic in Miami Vice, even though Miami Vice is the peak of his like, there is cocaine in my veins. And like I think that he like basically like he wrapped filming on Miami Vice and immediately checked himself into rehab.
Are you saying he did Total Recall completely sober?
Potentially.
Oh, jeez.
This is kind of like post what you hope to be sober Colin Farrell, getting to be kind of like a little bit cheeky, a little bit more off kilter. He's not playing the kind of dashing leading man, even though he is ostensibly always going to be that because he is so damn good looking.
They tried their best to make him ugly and horrible bosses, but it's like, I can see a babe under there.
But yeah, like this, I feel like this is the kind of start where like he does occasionally dip his toe into kind of more mainstream Hollywood fare, but like from this point onwards, he starts doing a lot more interesting stuff, where he starts doing like The Lobster and Killing of a Sacred Deer and Widows and all these kind of like little bit more off kilter things. And you have to kind of thank this movie for kind of like being a bit more mainstream than the likes of The New World and Miami Vice, in kind of proving that he can still front the movie and have it be successful.
And you know, while he's talking to Ken about it, and like you know, he's crying, and it's just really good.
Yeah, I think the main 3 actors in this are all on point.
Yes.
Like throughout. Like I think like this is possibly my favourite work of all 3 of those leading male actors.
Yeah. They go to an art gallery. He declares, I like this one, The rest are all rubbish, by word I won't say. The one they're looking at, I believe that is The Last Judgment, which is somewhat reenacted in our final scene. You can tell he's a playwright, can't you?
Yeah, I mean, like this scene, like they kind of start hinting at the kind of like idea that Bruges is a stand-in for purgatory.
Yes.
Around this point, it's a little bit heavy-handed, but again, as you say, he is a playwright.
We like symbolism, we like foreshadowing.
We like themes in like big neon letters.
Yes, chaos is the theme of the Dark Knight. Sorry, they have the conversation about how Ken killed a what was it? Like a lollipop?
He kills a lollipop man because the lollipop came at him with a bottle, and then they start discussing like,
why does he know karate?
Why does he know karate?
He says, what was he? A Chinese lollipop man? Karate is Japanese. Just
but I think that's his just ignorance. I think in general.
Mm-hmm. So Ray goes on his date with Chloe. He punches the Canadian man and his girlfriend. That's literally the entire plot point I wrote for that.
He wouldn't punch a woman, but she...
If you come at me with a deadly weapon, that's different, you know. I would never hit a woman. I'd never hit a woman. Please don't think that. But that was different. I like that he gets to honestly tell her what he does for a living under the guise of it seeming so ridiculous that, like, she takes it as a joke. But then it takes this dark turn because he's like, well, she says, I sell drugs. And she's like, do I look like I sell drugs? And he's like, do I look like I kill... What's he say? Like, people...
do I kill priests and children? She goes, like, not priests, but
just
you children.
And it's like, oh... And then she fucks with him with the whole... You know, she essentially does the, like, my mum's dead thing when he's, like, making light of the, like, child abuse situation in Belgium. And she's like, oh, one of my friends was one of those murder victims. And it's like, we're far adrift from political correctness and, like, safety here.
Yeah, like, this is a pitch black comedy.
Yes.
Pitch black. It's pitch black comedy that I feel because it mostly stays within its own kind of like wheelhouse of being Irish hitmen. It just manages to like It's like you're watching someone play Flappy Bird and they only just like make it through the gap.
That is a convoluted metaphor, but I will take it. Well, it's a simile. Anyway, I like that he holds Vietnam and John Lennon against what he assumes to be an American man.
I love his obsession with the Vietnamese.
I know.
Again, like that, I like that as a weird plot point, which is like he brings it up to the Canadian and goes like, the Vietnamese. I'm like, why are you talking about the Vietnamese? What have the Vietnamese got to do with anything?
The Vietnam War. I think he sympathises with people who have been like
oppressed.
Yeah. He does punch a lady and then he calls her a cow, and I guess that's mild considering the other things he says, but hey-ho. So while he is on this date, Harry calls, and after a long conversation, he finally gives Ken instructions to collect a gun in the morning so he can kill Ray as recompense for killing the boy. When Harry calls, playing on the TV that Ken is watching is Touch of Evil by Orson Welles, which contains a very famous continuous shot, and from the moment he answers the phone until the end of this scene, it is a continuous unbroken shot in homage. I really like the banality of the conversation with him being like, what? Is he in the toilet? Yeah. Oh, what's he doing? Is he doing a wee or a poo? Like, oh, what'd you tell him? Oh, he didn't mind. Like, oh, have you seen this? I just
love that he makes him. I love that he makes him repeat all the stuff that we've just heard him say.
I know. What did you say? I was like, oh, I told him to go for a drink. And what did he say? And it's like, did he not hear him? And he's just wasted this elaborate deception he's come up. This needlessly elaborate deception.
Which is why it's so good, because Brendan Gleeson's kind of just like hurried, harried kind of like recapping of the conversation he's just had. The way he bobs his head and counts like visually for like how long is realistic for him to hold the door open before he closes it,
and it's potentially for nothing. Yeah, he's like caught himself in this lie, and then he's having to fact check it. He's like, we'll go outside, he might still be there. It's like, we know he's not there because he was never fucking there.
I told you he was going to the loo. He wasn't going to the loo. He was never here. I just thought he might want to talk to you.
Yeah. Oh, very, very good. I love Harry flipping out when because he says how he went to Bruges when he was 7, and like that's the last time he was there, and he has this lifelong obsession with it because he went there as a child.
And it was like the last time he was truly happy, isn't it? What he says.
Oh, the last happy holiday I ever had, I think he says. Yeah, and just flipping out at Ken for saying that Ray wasn't enjoying it. He's like, oh no, but as soon as he got into the proper town, he loves it. And then it's like when he's finally satisfied, he's like, right, you're going to go and get a gun. So you're going to go to Ram Strat. It's like
Yeah.
Ram with 2 A's. And like they have this is definitely like an honor among thieves type mentality with criminals where like anything involving children is over the line, and Ken has to do it because he's the one that brought Ray in, and it's like this the code of honor or whatever amongst people that murder people for a living. Yeah, it's this incredibly difficult thing because, you know, we haven't seen Harry, but they make him a bit of a buffoon at times, but he maintains this, like, scary edge. You feel bad for Ken for being put in this situation. We will talk about Ray Fiennes when he physically appears, I think. So, Chloe's boyfriend attempts to rob Ray with a gun with blanks in it, but Ray takes it from him and fires one in his eye, blinding him. So Chloe takes him off to the hospital. Ray steals her drugs and does them with Ken, Jimmy, who is the little person, and 2 prostitutes. We have more where he's talking about skinheads and how they used to just beat up 12-year-old Pakistani boys, and now they all have to be insert your slur of choice. Let's skip over all of that and just get into Jimmy's race war rant because
I want to touch on the little bit where they're in the bar and Ken is drinking like 4 pints in 20 minutes or whatever it is that the bartender says, and then Ray shows up and he's just done like a load of coke. And he's just like, my heart might stop any second. Do you want to do some coke? And he's like, I thought you don't want to do coke anymore because it makes you depressed. Brendan Gleeson buggers off to the toilet, does the lines of coke, and then like Colin Farrell's poking of Jimmy in the head to try and get his attention, tell him off for not waving to him earlier, is incredible. And then Brendan Gleeson sidling up and kind of like
the
resting
little weird face. I like that he says I've got 4 on me and 1 in me when he says how much coke he's got. Because, I mean, he spends the whole film putting his foot in his mouth and just not having a filter, and he says about, oh, Amsterdam, isn't that just prostitutes? And she's like, yeah, so I came here because I thought I'd get a better price for my pussy. And he's like, yous are weird. Do you want some cocaine? Yeah, and Jimmy has a little rant about how there's going to be a war between black people and white people. And Ray is just sort of asking him who, and he uses the word half-caste, which we don't say that anymore. But
No, we don't.
Yeah, and he's just asking which of these various ethnic groups fit where, and it's something.
They are doing the whole laughing at the racist bit.
Yes.
And I do enjoy Ray kind of like at the end of it going like, well, I'm not going to fight with the whites, I'm going to fight with the...
Oh, I think they've got Vietnamese.
I love that that's the turning point for him. It's like, in all of this, I was like, oh, they got the Vietnamese. Nah.
Yeah, it's a whole thing. It's that thing again where it's like, I understand why you're doing it, but still someone had to write this all down, you know? And
yeah.
I think it just about comes out on... Of all the problematic things in this movie, I think this one is because it's made a joke and that Jimmy is the butt of the joke, and they are all, you know, when they later hold it over him and he was like, oh, I didn't say, yeah, you did. And it's like, okay, but...
That would just be on coke.
I wish this was the most problematic thing in the movie, but it's not, unfortunately.
But this scene's kind of like, it is saved by Ken's speech at the end about his wife.
Yeah, he says his wife was black and she was murdered by a white man in 1976. They originally filmed a flashback where Matt Smith was going to be playing a young Harry, and he was going to walk in, see the young Ken holding his dead wife, and then march into a police station and behead the policeman that did this. And the only reason they cut it out was because they felt the CGI decapitation looked shit.
It does look pretty bad. I've seen that.
Oh, have you?
Online. Oh, it's online.
Oh, okay. I just read about it. I didn't know it was viewable. I will go look at that. That sounds like a good casting. Does Domhnall Gleeson play a young Brendan?
I'm not sure, actually.
It becomes a pretty good beat for the end of the movie as well, and it's like it comes out of this like borderline disgusting scene, and it's just this nice little moment where like Ken is saying like, you know, well, where should I throw my lot? He's like, oh, I don't know, man, you gotta do what you gotta do, I'm just high. And then he karate chops him and leaves, and it's strange. So Ken does go and collect the gun in the morning, but then when he realizes Ray was about to kill himself, he stops him. They have a big talk. He puts him on a train to start a new life. He calls Harry, tells him what he did, and he's like, you know where the hotel is, come get me. So, when Ken goes out, we see Ray is actually awake, and he's pretending to be asleep. And he does this, he did it when he was getting ready for the date. He does this nervous thing where he's like putting his hand in his mouth almost, and he's got like the single tear, and yeah, it's so good. Like, he's really, really nailing this, like, I'm giving it all that, but this is killing me, almost literally. And another nice little thing is, throughout the movie, Ray wears one outfit, except for the flashback, whereas Ken has multiple, and it's like, maybe they're trying to go for, left in a hurry, didn't bring anything, but I read it as...
So depressed he can't be bothered to, like, change clothes.
I read it as, like, he knew what he was going to do when he came here, so why bother bringing, like,
okay.
Like, why shop for food if you know you're going to, that thing. But, either way, he's depressed, he's not looking after himself, that whole deal. You see, Marie tells Ken that Ray gave her €200 for the baby, and, like, he puts it together what's happening, and it's such a powerful scene when he, like, approaches him, and I can't cast my mind back to the first time I saw it, but I think it sort of shocked me to see Ray pull the gun on himself as he was approaching him, but it's really well done, and their conversation about it is great, and like that Ken is completely fine with handing Ray his gun, and then he confiscates Ray's one in return and everything, and it's really well, they both are acting their socks off, quite frankly.
Yeah, it's that moment where it's like, I love how involuntarily it feels, because obviously, like, Ken is fully about to shoot him in the back of the head, and then he sees Ray pull the gun, and then immediately, the moment he sees Ray pull the gun, he's like, no, don't. Yeah. Like, what are you doing? What are you doing, Ray? And it's like, he still cares about this person, and it makes you think, like, he probably wasn't actually going to pull the trigger. Everything about it is kind of, like, so well set up, and it is kind of foreshadowed when he goes to buy the gun. Like, even though most of that scene is kind of, like, all about the alcoves and nooks and crannies and whatnot, but it is very much like you see the look on Ken's face, and it's like, oh, this is the face of someone who is done with this life. He wants to spend his life bumbling around European cities and not murdering for money anymore.
It's so weird because he's so nice, and you never actually see him kill anyone except himself. And the idea that this guy has, it was Ray's first and only time, and Ken has been doing this for years, and it's like you can't imagine him doing it, but. Hey, it's really dark when they come back to the hotel and he finds Ray's note that says, I went to the park so she wouldn't have to clean it up. And it's like, Jesus.
Yeah. Instead, I'll do it around the small children.
Well, yeah, there is that. And when he puts him on the train, I really like when he says, that's the one thing I love about Europe, you don't have to learn any of their languages. And it's like, that's so true. We've all travelled Europe, and like, you get spoken to in whatever the regional language, and you're just like, I'm sorry, I'm a dumb English person. So we finally see Harry when he calls him, and he smashes the phone to pieces, and Ray finds, I quite frankly did not think he had this in him, because obviously probably his most famous role is Voldemort, who is the big evil man, but it's a much more like over the top.
I mean, he done Schindler's List and was like the big villain in that. He has the English Patient. I think the big issue with Ray Fiennes was kind of like, because of certain films, he kind of got put into like leading men roles, which I think he's so much more interesting as like a side character actor, and not necessarily the villain, because I think he does play villains a bit too frequently, even though he is really good in Harry Potter, he is really good in this, but it's so much more interesting when he's given something just a little bit more left of center than what he's normally given. And so like this is kind of like the second stage of his career, really.
Yeah, I mean, he's great. I just didn't think he had this sort of like scary London gangster character in him, because he so frequently plays like very posh people, and he's very good at that. And just him smashing the phone to pieces, and when his wife says it's an inanimate fucking object, he's like, you're an inanimate fucking object. and then he apologizes.
And it's like, okay, so obviously, like, he's got a bit of rage, but, like, there's still, like, a functional relationship under all of this.
Yeah, he's got his 3 perfect children, and they've got their housekeeper or whatever, and yeah, it's, for a hot minute, it's like, is Harry the nicest one of them? And then, no, he comes out with some really bad stuff as well, but he's great, and I really love that it takes this long to see him, and then you just see him standing there holding the phone, and we've gotten used to him on the other end of a phone, and then he's great.
Yeah, it's a really effective piece of getting you invested in a character you don't see before now. For all the shortcomings in terms of like the individual words that they choose to get stuff across, this movie does a phenomenal job of characterization, of world building, of kind of getting across the personality of the characters. It's just kind of like every single thing about it, like you could change words and like what they are aimed at doing and make it punch up rather than punch down, and it becomes kind of like probably like close to a perfect movie in like kind of like every functional way, in that you can make it so that these characters talk about these things in a similar way to how they do with this, without it being as slurry and without it being as kind of like offensive to everyone, in that way that kind of like in that kind of way that Dubros try and be, and it becomes a far stronger movie for that reason. Definitely. And I still love this movie because I do think that like it just about manages to overcome all those things, but I can also see a world in which like you would write this movie off and go like, no, this movie is irredeemable trash.
I think it needed that producer who was a little bit more conscious of how it was going to play to audiences and just be like, could you just tidy some of this up?
I mean, but the thing is, I'm sure it being at this point almost 12 years old when they shot it, it being kind of like a very small independent movie that Martin McDonagh probably got to do based off of like the cast that he got and his strength as like a playwright, that he probably got away with not having much oversight, and I feel like that lack of oversight probably is what kind of leads us down the road to Three Billboards, where being the writer-director, there isn't other creative voices coming in to kind of go like, oh, maybe you should be the one doing this. And I don't think that the experience of Three Billboards has endeared him to change his tone. I mean, the fact that movie came very close to winning Best Picture is very scary. I'm glad the Oscars managed to hold off for a year before giving it to like the really bad trash racist movie.
Well, maybe his lovely girlfriend can needle him about his behaviours. Anyway, Harry arrives in Bruges. I said it. He collects a gun, he meets Ken, they have a drink, they agree to go up to the top of the bell tower. They have no idea Ray has returned. I like that it's the Canadian from the restaurant that gets Ray arrested and taken back to Bruges.
Because, he punched 2 people in a restaurant.
Yeah.
Like, you don't just get to walk off.
And I do like that he genuinely feels, he's like, Canadian? Oh, fuck. As if, like, he's like, I don't have anything specific against Canadians.
Because this is Zelchko Ivanek, who is kind of, like, very well known for playing supporting characters on TV shows. And this is, like, a point where, like, he's doing, like, 3 TV shows, I feel like, at this point.
Did he do Heroes?
Yes, he was on Heroes for a hot minute. He was the Hunter.
Yes.
In Heroes. He won an Emmy for Damages. He's on Lost. He's on The Mentalist.
He did that really good episode of House.
Yeah, he's doing a lot of TV stuff, and he still somehow found the time to presumably fly to Bruges. I don't know whether or not the entire movie shot in Bruges, or whether or not they shot some in London and the location stuff is...
I think most of it is Bruges, but yeah.
It's just like, did they build sets? Because obviously, like, a lot of the stuff all the stuff that he's in is like, he's on a train and he's in a restaurant. He's not in the location stuff, so it could be... Yeah.
Maybe that's how they got him. I like that Chloe bails him out, and then he's like, do you want... What's he said? Sorry I took your cocaine and your acid, and she just looks direct to camera and says, English humour. She's really good in this.
She is. The other Harry Potter actress.
Fleur Delacour.
Fleur Delacour.
I should have kept calling Brendan Gleeson Mad-Eye Moody and just refused to call them anything but their character names. But I don't know.
Voldemort, Mad-Eye Moody, and the character that Colin Farrell plays.
Yes, exactly. No one's seen that.
And should have continued playing. Have you seen Fantastic Beasts?
No.
Oh, so you don't know who he plays?
The moment they said we're doing 5 of these, I was like, I'm out.
So Colin Farrell is Johnny Depp.
Oh yeah.
And I wish Colin Farrell was the villain of the series and was making sexy eyes at Dumbledore. I'd be far more into that.
As far as I know, he's never been problematic to women and Native Americans. I like Harry turning down an Uzi because I'm not from South Central fucking Los Angeles and I'm not here to kill 10 black-year-olds in a drive-by. And it's like, for a second, it's like, is Harry the only one who's saying problematic things that are on, like, the right side? You know, like, it's like a criticism rather than... And then seconds later, he calls Eric a puff and a blind little gay boy, and it's like, oh, cool. I like
we get more alcoves discussion.
The 2 of them share that as a little in-joke, knowing what's about to potentially happen. That's a nice moment. And the tenseness of Harry rocking up and Ken just sitting there casually at the table and like offering him a beer, and they just sit there and it's like, stuff's gonna go down, but we don't know when.
I did enjoy the summary that someone put on a website somewhere that was the only movie you'll find where Mad-Eye Moody calls Voldemort a cunt over beers.
You're a cunt. You'll always be a cunt. Yeah.
cunt kids.
Have some cunt kids. That is over the line. You take that back. I retracted it, didn't I? Yeah, and you get Harry like swearing he would have killed himself on the spot if he'd killed a child, which is some foreshadowing, of course. And I like that Ken gets away with calling him a cunt because in his mind he knows he's gallows humor, you know, like he's going to die.
Yeah, like he knows he's going to die, so he's like, well, I'm going to air all my grievances with this person who... And what I love is that he kind of airs all his grievances here, and then as the conversation progresses, they go up the tower, it starts to become more just kind of like, right, I've done all the things that annoy me.
Yeah.
I also am indebted to you forever for all the great things you've done in my life.
Yeah, like alluding to his integrity and his honour and how, you know, avenging his wife essentially, and saying like, but despite all of that, I had to not, you know, I had to basically say fuck you, and I've done it, and I've accepted whatever you're going to do. And...
Yeah, and I understand, because like there are an awful lot of people that will think like Harry, where killing a child is the absolute worst thing you could possibly ever do, and he probably should be in prison.
Yeah,
100% he should be in prison for what he's done.
Well, yeah, I mean, that's not probably it. He also deliberately killed an adult man.
Yeah, we don't know what the priest did. It's Matt Raider. He probably did something bad.
Well, yeah.
I just mean in terms of, it's that thing where it's like you feel sympathy for Colin Farrell.
Yeah, we generally side with, because we can tell he genuinely feels bad about it. And it's not that you should forgive everyone automatically just because they feel bad. Some people do things so bad that it's like, you should feel bad, I don't forgive you. But the film, you know, films, we are trained to side with someone. And we like Ray more than we like Harry, despite the many bad things Ray has said and done. Because Harry just openly is a cunt. And I like that they're talking about, like, you know, it's a shame it's in Belgium, but, like, if it was somewhere good, no one would come. And it's like, did McDonagh just go to Bruges as a child or something and hate it? Did he have the inverse reaction of Harry? I don't know why they singled out Belgium as being a shithole, but hey.
They do good chips.
Yeah, so Harry can't go through with it after this big speech, so he just shoots him in the leg. But then after learning from Eric that Ray is downstairs, they have this fight, and Harry shoots him in the throat. And with his dying moments, Ken throws himself off the top of this tower and then warns Ray, who runs away. Ray and Chloe, well, the actors have this really good chemistry. Like they really sell being like deliriously in lust. I don't know, like maybe it's just fun to kiss Colin Farrell. I imagine it is. I can
only imagine that is like if you got to do a movie and you were just like, right, most of your role will be making out with Colin Farrell. You kind of go like, where do you need me? Do I need to take my passport, and how much money am I getting paid for this?
Yeah, exactly. Like, I don't know. It just looks that they're both genuinely really enjoying this, and I think that is an underrated thing in movies. That they look the part, and you see them having the drink with Jimmy, who explains why he is wearing the schoolboy outfit, and they're like, you know, they call him on what he said before and everything. But then, yeah, there is both a beauty and a utter fucking ridiculousness to Ken's suicide, because, you know, the song playing, I think it's Townes Van Zandt, and like dropping the coins from earlier and the mist below him, and then it's really powerful, but then like there's this huge thud and he's alive and says Harry's here, and this is all after he's been shot in the fucking throat, and it's like, why won't you die? But
there's a lot of blood. His arm is a little bit messed up.
I don't feel he'd be able to form words. And then he's like, I think I'm going to die now. And then
I enjoy that the movie kind of like takes a leap and gets very, very much more heightened.
Yeah.
Like it is kind of like a clear delineating point where previously like the most violence we've seen apart from like the murder was that kind of like vaguely realistic attack where like Ray shoots Eric in the eye.
Yeah.
Is the kind of like most explicit but kind of like bumbling piece of violence in the film so far.
And then violence crashes into frame.
Yeah, it like literally crashes into frame. But I also enjoy that they still keep it vaguely realistic, even within this, where like he's fallen face down onto the gun that he's put into his thing, and so the gun is obviously completely smashed up because
he's like, where's my gun? And it's like, so Ray and Harry get into this chase through the streets of Bruges.
I was shocked when I looked at the runtime. I was like, there's 15 minutes left of this.
No, and at the time my instinct was like, they should have cut everything after this as short as possible because we've hit this emotional high of Ken's death. But then like the end is really good. So them getting into this, it culminates in Ray getting shot, Jimmy gets killed, Harry thinks it's a child, so he kills himself. Like, that's what happens plot-wise. But
I enjoy all the little things, because obviously, like, the little callback to like the fact that he gets the dumdums.
The dumdums? Would you like some dumdums?
That like I enjoyed that that's actually got a payoff that doesn't involve kind of like a character like actually head exploding in a viscerally graphic way. Because obviously like, it's the reason why Harry kills himself is because he can't see that it's Jimmy's head because he's blown Jimmy's head off using these dumdums.
Dumdums. I really like the weird little Mexican standoff when they make it back to the hotel with Ray, Harry, and Marie, because Harry won't hurt her because she is pregnant, and that Ray suggesting is like, right, I'll jump out the window, you run around there's a bit there, you can you can try and shoot at me from there, and that Harry's repeatedly being like, do you totally promise, and stuff like that. It's just this, and she's just like, you guys are fucking crazy. I also like Ray thinking that he's like, you're too far away, and then he's just completely wrong, and it's like, it plays back into the whole thing, he was a hitman for one day and he fucked it up, and it's like, yeah, he probably should know the effective range of a gun. Just sit there and be like, nah, you're too far away. And then there is this like surreal beauty to the final shots where they are like staggering through this film set because Jimmy is filming this nod to Don't Look Now, and it's all fantastical, and I think it's playing into both The Last Judgment painting, Don't Look Now, Harry's repeated claims that it's like a fairy tale town, and it just all looks great when they're just, it's snowing and there's people with weird masks, and you get this transferred guilt when Harry now thinks he has done the thing that Ken did, but he didn't do it. That Ray did, but he didn't, but he kills himself anyway because he has to have his principles, and it's all deliciously fits neatly together in that play kind of way. Ray would 1000% be dead. I know it ends on that like ambiguous thing where he's like, I don't want to die, but I think I read somewhere that like according to the script he does survive, but they just didn't film it or something.
I mean, I prefer it this way.
Yes, definitely.
Like you get to make up your own mind whether or not you think Ray deserves to live or die.
Yeah, I like that he's like, maybe hell is spending eternity in Bruges, but I don't want to die.
The theme comes in with a sledgehammer at this point where they start explicitly talking about like heaven, hell, and purgatory and all the rest of it, and it's like, okay.
Yeah, you're waiting for Harry to come and deliver your judgment in purgatory. Yeah, it's a great, like, this kind of is the kind of ending that I say I don't like, but I think it works here in a way that it doesn't always, because it is giving you something. It's not just a wistful and then I woke up. Yeah, I will never let that one go. You can simply just decide for yourself he lived or he died, but I enjoyed the narrative complete experience, and yeah, this ending is really powerful, and when I think about it, I don't recommend it to people because I'm like, oh, it's really fucking funny. It does have a lot of great lines, I admit.
I think this is a wickedly funny movie but I'm also that person that's like, all this kind of straight comedies we've done are not movies that I would necessarily pick, which is that weird thing where like, I'm, as much as I enjoy comedy, it's rarely the thing that kind of like sticks with me.
I think comedies that have that like dramatic element tend to stand better because it's
I mean it's
once you've heard all the jokes, what more is there is kind of the thing, whereas stuff like this, stuff like, in my opinion, Superbad, in my opinion, Forgetting Sarah Marshall, there is something to them beyond the ha ha ha, here's our
it's why like Fleabag, BoJack Horseman, Parks and Recreation are shows that I love, is because there is more to them than just the funny ha ha ha, in that I'm attached to characters, I'm attached to themes and dramatic kind of resonance, and it's why this kind of like this latest decade of TV kind of being more like half-hour dramas that are very funny is something that's very much appealed to me, as opposed to let's do a 20-minute joke fest.
Yeah, it's like, I don't really like genres. Like, let's fuck around. Let's do everything. Like, why can't a drama be funny? Why can't a comedy have drama? Like,
yeah, I mean, I will point to, I think that Breaking Bad and Mad Men can be some of the funniest shows, or were some of the funny shows on TV when they felt like doing that kind of thing. But they're also really fucking dark. And
and There Will Be Blood and No Country have some funny beats in them. And I like to think of it as like, they're basically using the comedy to sort of Trojan horse in some drama and some like commentary on real heavy issues with a lot of these TV shows these days. But anyway, I would never recommend this as like, oh, you gotta see this, it's so funny. I recommend it because I think it's just a really good fucking story and like great acting from Colin Farrell and the music, the cinematography, like all of it. It's, I think.
Yeah, I was trying to see whether the cinematography done much. It's Igel Brild, who has kind of done more kind of like TV work work since, including, sadly, every episode of Crisis on Six Scenes, which was Woody Allen's Amazon TV series. So,
God.
yeah.
Woody Allen and Jeff Bezos, good friends.
Yeah. Apparently they shot the report this year. I'm excited to see that when that does show up on Amazon in a few weeks. I say a few weeks, it'll be out by the time this episode's released. So
yeah, well, that's gonna do it for In Bruges. It's I feel like everyone has seen it, but no one talks about it, and it's
weird. This was like a bonding point movie for people in my first term of university.
Yeah.
There are multiple people who I can point to and be like, that this was like their favourite movie, and I do love this movie. I do think that the problematic elements have not aged well, and maybe if in 3 years time, if I watch this movie again, maybe I'm not going to think it still holds up and isn't kind of like reprehensible trash.
Nah,
but
Colin Farrell crushes it. It's real
that's
good.
The thing is like so much of this movie, like it's still 3 great performances. It's still completely like a fantastic kind of like character study, and I do think that lines that aren't kind of like problematic, like you're an animate fucking object, stand up so well.
Yeah.
Good movie. Glad we covered it. I got to have a very nice time with watching it with a very tiny kitten in my lap, so that was very enjoyable for me.
Well, we're going to do a movie that is in no way problematic next week. We're going to do The Wrestler, which Worlds Collide. Yeah, that's going to be an experience for us both, I think.
Can I do my bold claim?
Go on then.
My favourite movie of the decade.
Oof, jeez. All right, well, that's put some pressure on it all. Go to intotherealworld.com, go to soundcloud.com/Mike and Matt. We have a lot of podcasts here now running on a weekly basis, not just this, not just the Superhero Pantheon. Flooping the Pig has joined the Real World. That is Kevin Ford, Justin Houston, and Brad Garoon's podcast about Adventure Time. They have new episodes coming in the new year, so we're uploading their archive for now. Yeah, Mike might do things on the website. I owe him a Legion Series 3 podcast. He doesn't remember anything that happened.
How many episodes of Legion you got left to watch?
I committed to watching it all again from the start, and I'm halfway through Series 2, but that was months ago that I was doing that, so...
Well, it's fun. We've only got 4 movies left to do, so maybe you can like carve out some time before we move into
well,
Project
we've got
number
another
1.
podcast coming immediately in 2020. Anyway,
it's fine. If we get these recorded by the end of this month, then you've got a couple of weeks to watch Legion.
Yeah, a couple of weeks? Thanks. In addition to that great gift, can you do me the gift of telling me if there will be movies?
You're a fucking inanimate movie.
Bye, everyone.
Still I didn't know, and I did it for so